What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Game Show. My name's AJ Gills. How y'all doing? It is time once more for the weekly show, and with all the stuff that came out about The Last of Us Part 2 during Outbreak Day, I thought, you know what? Let's do just a feature episode on The Last of Us 2. I thought that would be the perfect idea for this episode. So I hope you guys enjoy this. So I've got a couple articles on Games Radar. I think they've got some really good breakdowns of a lot of the stuff. We have some, they have some interviews or some stuff that a few of the directors have said about the story that we'll take a look at. This is all kind of coming off of their impressions from a 2-hour demo that they got that sadly enough Naughty Dog won't release to the public, or at least that I haven't seen. Has been released to the public, so otherwise I'd actually watch that 2-hour demo with you guys right now. Instead, we do have kind of like an inside the demo, kind of like a making of thing that we're going to watch at the end of the video. I'm going to try and keep this from being too redundant, repeating information, but I'm going to warn you, it might happen. So, other than that, I am going to do a few sort of channel announcements / impressions of a demo I played recently. So if you want to skip ahead right to when we start talking about The Last of Us 2, now's your chance. There will be timestamps in the description along with links to every article we talk about. So now's your chance. All right. On to the actual announcements. I have decided that I am not going to be doing a Let's Play or anything for FIFA 20. The reason I did that, I loaded it up, I bought it, I was ready to play it, and then I'm sitting there looking at it going, you know what, I'm just not feeling it. I've got enough stuff to already do. We already have a lot of stuff coming up in October. I think, hell, even within the first 2 weeks of October, we already have 2 games coming out with Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and we're also going to be playing Concrete Genie. So I think we've got enough to do that we don't need to play a FIFA 20. Plus, from what I've seen, Volta Football is going to have story beats, but it's not going to be like the Journey. So I don't really think we need to play FIFA 20. Now, if you really desperately want to see it, tell me. But for the most part, I think I'm just going to skip. I'm going to skip FIFA 20 in favor of other projects. So first, that's my channel announcement. The demo that I played that I actually wanted to talk about, I played the short-lived demo for the upcoming Medieval remake. I was going to do, kind of do a video for it. And then at the end of it, it just kind of it got really repetitive of me saying, oh my gosh, this is fucking terrible. I hated that demo. I hated it. I hated it. So, it feels like an old school kind of, it feels like the old game with a new coat of paint. Your character controls like a boulder. Combat is garbage. It's basically just get close to somebody, mash square until they die. It feels so dated, just with like I said, like a new coat of paint. I mean, it looks good, but it controls terribly. I really think that game, it's for people who were fans of the original, because I don't see that picking up new fans. Because it controls so, like I said, it feels like a game for the 90s. Like a PS2 game for the 90s. That's what it feels like to me. So, there are my impressions on that demo. I'm not going to subject you guys to it. So, all right. So, that's all the stuff I wanted to talk about beforehand. Now let's actually get into The Last of Us 2. So the first article we have here is The Last of Us 2 Makes You Feel Like a Monster. Article Rachel Weber. It's from about 3 days ago. So when you finally get to play The Last of Us 2, there's one thing that's worse than fighting the monsters: the uncomfortable, nagging feeling that maybe, just maybe, you're a monster too. It hit me as Ellie was searching through a ruined, overgrown suburb of Seattle, picking off members of a group called the WLF, the Western Liberation Front. I had a selection of guns, a bow, arrows, and a hammer to use as a melee weapon. The WLF had tracking dogs that could follow my scent, and when one found me, it attacked, and all I could do to survive was fight back. Could I pet the dog? No, but I could hammer it to death, and then hear the cries of anguish from its handler echoing through the ruined house. Okay. 1, if it is that brutal of like you like hammer the thing to death, wow, that is dark. I mean, I've heard that from a lot of the impressions that Naughty Dog is not pulling punches here, that they are, going balls to the wall. You will be put in some really fucked up situations. Okay, I'm cool with that because, I'm sure let's see what it's like. But this might be, it might seem like something that's wrong with me, but am I the only one who doesn't really have a problem killing animals in video games? You really don't. Because I see so many people, I had to kill the doggy, I feel bad. I sit here and go, no, it's attacking me, it dies. It's an enemy. I maybe it's because it's a video game, maybe it's because, I know it's not real. I don't know. I don't have a problem killing animals in games. Generally, there are a few times that I would, like if it's one of those like, hey, here's your pet animal that's been hanging out with you the entire game, you have to put it down because it got infected with a disease or it's gonna become rabid or something, like an Old Yeller situation. Okay, that could be a difficult situation for me, but it's not because it's a dog, but that's because it's a moral situation of I have to take out my friend. Yeah, it just the whole idea of, it's a dog. Doesn't really bother me. So, see here. Dark times mean dark games, and The Last of Us 2 feels like the traumatized child of the original Last of Us. And the difficult years in human history that have marked its development. It has been 5 years since the events of the original game, and Ellie is now 19, tougher, snarkier, and more capable than the girl we met in 2013. The two sections of The Last of Us 2 that I got to play had very different moods, and it felt like they were glimpses of two different parts of Ellie. The first, a young woman who wants romance and to fool around with friends. The second, a girl who has to murder her way through dogs and people on a path to revenge. What is with everyone focusing on the dog murder? I mean, what? I had to laugh when Neil Druckmann came out and said that, killing dogs is optional. I'm like, why are you addressing this? That's just such a weird thing for critics to be focusing on. Although I did have to laugh. I put this out on Twitter, because I think it was Samori Roden who sent me this. It was fucking hilarious. It was a god damn it! It was an Onion article that they released, like 7 things we learned from the demo, and it was just a whole bunch of just really just funny. It's the Onion, it's the Onion being the Onion. But one of them was, you aren't killing the infected or the cordyceps, but the game now has 50% more dog murder. It was really good, but Neil Druckmann responded to that Onion article saying, oh, goddamn it, what was his exact comment? It was like, way to go, the Onion breaking the embargo again. It was really good. I heavily suggest going and check out that Onion article. Back to what we were doing, sorry. I started out in a snowy Jackson, I don't know, patrolling on horseback with I'm going with Dinah, but I could be wrong. The woman Ellie kissed in the earlier trailer. As they check empty houses for supplies, supplements to level up skills, and items for crafting, it's just 2 women chatting about relationships. They just happen to be armed to the teeth. There was a pleasure. Okay, I'm going to guess that was a typo. In these quieter moments, a chance to explore the world that Naughty Dog has built, to get to know the characters in this early stage of the game. It was also a chance to test out our heroes' new abilities. Okay, so my guess is there's going to be open world you can't see me, so I'm, doing air quotes, elements to this game where it's going to be similar to like what Uncharted 4 did, where there are going to be open areas to explore, like when Nate when Nate and all them got to the pirate village, and when Nate and his brother, there we go, that's who was with him at that very second. And I need to go back and play Uncharted 4. That game was fantastic. When Nate and Sam got to the pirate city, you could kind of explore this little open sandbox version of the city. I'm assuming that's what it's going to be. There's going to be open-ish areas. There's going to be areas that are off the beaten path. Again, the stuff that we saw in The Last of Us. It is stuff for extra supplies, upgradable items, etc., etc. have a feeling that's what it's going to be. Where the hell was I? There was a pleasure in these quieter moments. Change that Naughty Dog is built to get to know the characters. In this early stage of the game, it was also a chance to test out our here's okay, I finished the paragraph. The first thing you notice about Ellie is that she's more agile now. She can go prone to slither under obstacles or hide in long grass. She can jump and climb. It's not that she's superpowered, just that she's an adult now, one who has grown up in a world where being light on your feet is the difference between life and death. Listen mode, which Ellie can use to make out the location of enemies, is more sophisticated, and when that fails, there's a dedicated dodge button to help you escape danger. Ellie is a character that has naturally advanced in the time we've been away from her, and she feels more powerful to play as a result. Well, I mean, of course she's going to be more powerful. She's 19. I mean, when we played her, how many years did they say had... 5 years? Yeah, she was 14 in the first game. I always forget how old Ellie was. I knew she was like an early teenager. I just can never remember I can never pin down the exact age. Yeah, so she was 14 in the first game. Honestly, I thought some of the best moments in the original Last of Us game was when you got to play as Ellie in that the winter chapter when Joel was injured. Those moments were so cool. Because again, you didn't have the burly strength that Joel had, so you had to play it a little differently. Even the Left Behind chapter, where you got to play as Ellie in that mall where all those guys were trying to find Joel, that was a really cool moment. So I'm kind of glad that they made adult Ellie basically not the same as adult Joel. Adult Ellie is younger Ellie, but she's bigger. It's more focused on speed and ingenuity and elusiveness and everything. It makes sense. I mean, yes, she's going to be stronger, but she's still going to have certain aspects that she was when she was younger. She feels like the same character, just aged. I like that. And I mean, we've seen this because I've read other articles that have said Ellie's going to have more kind of like range of movement than Joel had in the first game. And again, it kind of makes sense. She's going to be smaller. She's going to have different aspects and all that. But one of the things that I really like is the fact that you can go prone in this one and crawl under cars, and you can, there's a lot more of like tactical things that you can do in this game that I'm really excited to kind of like mess around with. Let's see, what was this one? Moose Pate. I hope that's how I'm pronouncing that correctly. It all seems like a fairly wholesome apocalypse until you come across a messily slaughtered moose, a sign that there's a cluster of infected close by. The basic bitch infected the runners were easy enough to pick off with stealth kills. There were our old friends, the clickers, who respond to sound once isolated, could be distracted with bottles and bricks to let me get close enough to take them out. It all felt familiar, a little refresher on life post-outbreak, and was also a reminder that Ellie isn't the same uncertain little girl she was 5 years ago. This section of the game just represented her day-to-day, her new normal. I can't speak. The patrol also revealed some interesting story details. When reaching an area where the air was thick with spores, Ellie and Dinah both pulled on gas masks, so Ellie is clearly keeping her immunity a secret from even her closest friends. Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Why would she share her immunity with people? Well, I guess it's to keep people from thinking that they're not doing anything to try and stop the outbreak or anything. I mean, how? Also, here's my next question: does Ellie at this point know that Joel lied to her about about her not being able I'm trying to form this sentence in my brain. Does Ellie know that Joel lied to her about the Fireflies not being able to do anything about her immunity? That, does she know that he lied, or does she know that Joel basically killed all the Fireflies to protect her from, basically being killed in that moment? I don't know. Part of me's hoping that she doesn't know that Joel lied, so that through that, then during the game she's going to find out at some point, and there's going to be that moment of, does she kill Joel, does she not? Or if Joel's a ghost, maybe she shoots at him and the bullets pass through him, and that's when we find out that Joel's a ghost. I'm really hoping that Joel's not a ghost, although that would be an awesome way to do it. I'm sorry. A lot of this game hinges on whether or not Joel's a ghost to me. I want to know if Joel's a freaking ghost. Sorry. A snowstorm forces the patrol into an old library where we found the den of a member of the Jackson community who had recently passed away, Eugene. From his papers, we find out he was a Firefly, the revolutionary militia group from the original game, and there are some nice Easter eggs to be found among his belongings, including a dusty PS3 with a copy of Uncharted, so Joel could have feasibly enjoyed some Nathan Drake. Stick that in your naughty... God damn it. Stick that in your Naughty Dog universe and smoke it, blah, blah, blah. And a collection of adult VHS tapes, including one called Smash Brandy's Cooch. Looks to camera. Gross. Oh, I get it. Smash Bandicoot. Okay, I get it. That's cute. This is also where we get to get a crash course in using scrap to upgrade your guns at a workbench. Don't expect to be attaching laser sights or grenade launchers to your arsenal of weapons. This is about steadily improving recoil and rate of fire, not turning Ellie into a super soldier. If the first game is anything to go by, you'll have to make tough decisions about that. Scraps in short supply. Finally, our intrepid duo finds Eugene's secret stash, a weed farm complete with a gas mask fashioned into a bong. Of course it was. The women take a break to smoke, chat, flirt, and make out. Why I say in Disney's, and Naughty Dog's penchant for writing realistic characters ensures that all the dialogue feels natural and real, and for a moment, like there might just be a bit of hope left even in the ruined world. But forget all that, friends, because The Last of Us 2's game director Neil Druckmann has warned us on more than one occasion that while the first game was all about love, this one is about hate. The second section of the demo was distinctly Dinah-free. I'm still trying to figure out how to pronounce that name. And it left me with far too many questions about just who Ellie is so dead set on avenging. This slice of my demo took place in a lush, overgrown section of the Seattle suburbs, and it's our hero taking on the WLF directly. This group is different from the Seraphites, the religious fanatics we saw in earlier trailers, and have a military feel to their outfits and actions. They hunt Ellie with scent dogs, who can find you even when you're well hidden from the human enemy's line of sight, and whose bite is much, much worse than their bark. By the time you face the WLF and their tracking dogs, the clickers feels like murder for beginners. They don't shout commands out to one another, track your scent, and scream out your name of the dead in horror as you take them. I'm sorry, I'm gonna reset that sentence because I feel like they don't shout commands out to one another, track your scent, and scream out the name of the dead in horror as you take them down, while the increased intelligence of the new enemy means a few gnarly deaths for Ellie. It also makes for a more satisfying type of stealth. You're forced to really outsmart them if you want to avoid any conflict, and to be fast and efficient if you want to kill them. The Last of Us 2 is all about choices. The small slice of action proves the concept is built into its core. You see, they mentioned something here. They talk about how, what is it, that they're not shouting commands out to one another, that they'll track scent, scream the name of the dead in horror. Now, that's something that's really interesting to me, because I've read this somewhere, that apparently every character, even NPCs, have a name. So, like, the characters will, oh my god, Billy's dead, from what I've understood. They actually, care. Like, the NPC enemies actually care about their friends, which is a weird thing that I never knew I wanted. It's an interesting thing to throw into your game, or to, put that detail in. It's just world building stuff. I know it's ancillary, but it's a really neat thing that you're going to do in your game to kind of pull us more into the world, which I think is something that Naughty Dog does so well. There's one other thing I wanted to make mention of, and it's because I'm not sure if we're going to see this in another article. But I saw this on Push Square, because earlier in this little section they were talking about upgrading weapons and stuff. On Push Square, I read that there will be skill trees in this game. They're going to make a little more RPG-like. They have stuff on combat, survival, etc., etc. So there will be dedicated skill trees to upgrading Ellie. It's not just going to be like with Joel with the supplements. Or it's not going to be exactly like that. I'm not exactly sure how these skill trees are going to work, but there will be skill trees. I can say that. Ellie isn't as helpless. I can't speak. God damn. This is John Wick with freckles. God damn it. Ellie isn't as isn't a helpless. I can't. I don't even know what that word is. That's all. Oh my goodness, what do I do with this machete? But neither is she quite a John Wick with freckles. Ellie is smart and deadly, but she also drops fast and hard when a big German Shepherd has her by the throat, or when someone has her pinned at point blank rifle range. I don't know why that sentence is just structured so oddly for me. For all her weapons, shotguns, rifles, knives, mine traps, smoke bombs, and a stupid mistake is still likely to get you killed. While I won't pretend a few deaths in the backyard of a Seattle home weren't frustrating, they were also a nice reminder that Ellie isn't some all-powerful hero, just a woman trying to survive in a very dangerous world. She may have grown up since The Last of Us 2, but she hasn't spent the whole time bench pressing tractors and growing Kevlar skin. This is still a human story, no matter how many hatchets Ellie buries into the skulls. Well, I mean, I'd be surprised if it was. I mean, again, I think the first game was still very much like that. It was still very much, you had to use your brain. You couldn't just treat it like a third-person shooter. You actually had to think about how to save your weapons, how to best sneak up behind people. Watching the routes and everything. Yeah, the original Last of Us game I thought was very much like that as well. This time around, the world is your battleground. God damn it. This time around, the world that is your battleground feels bigger. There we go. Offering more routes and ways to avoid detection and sneak up on your foes. The bigger, more varied levels are something Naughty Dog used to great effect in Uncharted 4. I agree. And they work just as well in the suburban Seattle as they do in the jungle temples. There's a point A and point B you need to go to, but how you make it there is up to you. I was weaving through overgrown backyards and up the stairs of family houses, rats squeaking and scattering as I check cupboards for ammo and resources, the bark of tracker dogs never far behind. The bow salvage from an infected that surprised me after I squeezed through a gap in the wall was a big help as I perched on a roof of a house, silently picking off whoever I could. It was a punishing set piece, but an incredibly satisfying one, perfectly mixing Naughty Dog's mix of humanity and violent horrors. I gasped when, at the end of my demo, Joel emerged from the shadows, ready to help me on whatever my quest was. The gasp would be repeated around the room all afternoon as other players experienced it too. Well, why was that surprising? You saw that we saw that in the trailer. If it's the exact moment that I think it is, when Joel's saying, "Oh, you think I'm going to let you do this alone?" Yeah, we saw that in the trailer. In our introduction to the demo, Druckmann called this Naughty Dog's biggest game yet. It feels like it too, but The Last of Us 2 also looks to be the most sophisticated storytelling that the studio has ever attempted, precisely because it isn't neat and simple and tied up in a pretty bow. The writers aren't pulling any punches. Ellie is angry, hurt, and there's no guarantees of a happy ending because that's not how vengeance stories work. Walking away from the demo... Well, have you ever seen Rambo? Walking away from the demo, it made sense why we've been waiting so long for the sequel and why Naughty Dog has shown us so little of it so far. Overall, I like what I'm hearing about the story. I really like that it's going to be dark and angry and all this. I like that. I'm really curious to see how Ellie's grown over the years. I just want to know if Joel's a fucking ghost. That's probably my biggest question right now. I need to know. There's one other thing that I wanted to bring up. Oh, right. How they were talking about how there's still a point A, point B aspect to the game, but it's kind of like up to you of how you complete it. I'm still hoping there are some big, like, more traditional linear set pieces. Again, similar to like what they did in The Last of Us. But I have a feeling that we are going to see something like the first Last of Us game, where there are moments where it's a little more open, and then it kind of leads you to a choke point where there's this big set piece, probably like at the end of a chapter or at the end of a act or something like that, and then it opens back up again and then kind of leads you back into that point where, okay, this is an action set piece. Because personally, I like I like set pieces. I like stuff that it's not, oh, well, do whatever you want and approach it from any angle, because I think that loses some element of having that kind of like cinematic story. I've said this about a lot of the Assassin's Creed games and the Far Cry games as of late, where it's, oh, well, we're just going to drop you in an area and then you assault the base and do whatever you want from any angle, and it's up to you, and that's how you're going to do your story. There's only one person who can do a game like that I think actually found a way to make it cinematic, and that was Hideo Kojima with Metal Gear Solid 5. the Phantom Pain, I think, was the only game that I really played that I think was able to deliver that cinematic experience and still give you that you can approach it any way you want. But a lot of the Ubisoft games that have tried that, I don't think it's worked. I think it's actually hurt the game because it loses that cinematic quality. So I'm hoping that The Last of Us 2 can maintain that quality, but still kind of give us that little bit more freedom of movement. And as I'm saying this, I'm also kind of sitting here thinking, well, it's Naughty Dog. I'm pretty sure they're going to be able to do it. But either way, let's move on to the next article. All right, let's move on to an article that's more about the story. This is The Last of Us 2 is a story about the cycle of violence, says co-writer Haley Gross. Gross? I'm going with Gross because gross sounds rude. Article Rachel Weber of Games Radar. Haley Gross is a co-writer on The Last of Us 2 and the sort of person that's so effortlessly cool that you feel a sudden urge to formally invite them to your... Okay, whatever. Before joining Naughty Dog... why don't you lick her asshole more? Before joining Naughty Dog... I'm sorry, that was excessively rude. Before joining Naughty Dog, I hate it when writers do stuff like that, when, they try and be cute and quirky. I'm like, Destructoid is one of the few outlets that I think the writers are actually, I like when they tell jokes. I'm not saying that when I write, I don't tell jokes at all, but still, it just seems, I don't know, like I said, it just seems like just unnecessary ego stroking. Whatever. Before joining Naughty Dog for the Dark Tale of Vengeance, Gross worked on prestige shows like Westworld and brings a whole new perspective to the art of crafting game narrative. For her, the story isn't just about monsters, but the internal scars that Ellie has to either try and heal or learn to live with. Quote, ultimately, this is a story about the cycle of violence, right? But beyond that, it's a conversation about the effects systematic trauma can have on your soul, she tells me. And so to do that, obviously, Ellie experiences this deep trauma. It has an impact on her that's going to affect how she engages with the world. That's going to affect her tone as we sort of descend through... God damn, why can't I read this website? It's so weird. I think it's got something to do with the font in the background or something. I don't know. She engages with the world. That's going to affect her tone as we sort of descend through that. That being said, Ellie is driven by love. It's a love that sends her on her mission for justice. It's love that she feels for Joel and Dinah. These moments that buoy her, end quote. And I quote, so much of what we're trying to do is lean into the why. Gross continues, explaining that The Last of Us 2 isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about what drives a character to seek violent catharsis to begin with. It's like, yes, she's going on this quest for justice, but why? What is the impact on her soul, and why does she continue to go on? And it's the lightness that I think will hopefully balance out the dark, end quote. That's a big ask of a player to make them experience the trauma with Ellie and yet still want to pick up the DualShock for more. Gross believes that it's the job of the story to make the struggle engaging and to believe in Ellie's reasons for carrying on, and I quote, we're trying to help you feel the hard choices she has to make, help you feel how difficult it is to navigate the situations every day. She continues, in most of the setups, you can decide if you want to stealth, you can decide if you want to engage in combat, so hopefully that will keep you invested in her narrative, but ultimately propel the message of choice, of how every choice is hard and everything has a sacrifice and everything has an impact, end quote. Before I even have a chance to, Gross addresses the dogs. What is with everyone and the fucking dogs? I don't get it. Jesus. The dogs in The Last of Us 2 aren't for petting, and your encounters with them are borderline traumatic. In our demo set in suburban Seattle, we have to face scent tracking dogs as we hunt for our friend Tommy. The nature of gameplay demos means we don't yet know why he's missing or how much he really means to Ellie. We still know very little about what has happened in the 5-year gap between The Last of Us 2 and its predecessor. But at this point, you trust Ellie's instincts enough to know that it barely matters. Quote, you encountered the dogs, I'm sure, and she says, and that's a hard thing to face. Why? How much is my love for Tommy going to make me willing to engage with these dogs? Is there a way for me to avoid it? Do I have to make this hard call and hopefully will feel those decisions erode away at Ellie? And hopefully we can make a more, we can more deeply empathize with where she's going, end quote. Okay, again, I don't understand why everyone's focusing on the goddamn dogs. I don't understand why you need to ask this question in this interview. Is it because I'm a heartless son of a bitch? Well, okay, look, we know I am. But beside the point. Why? I don't understand everybody's, oh my god, I had to kill the dog. I saw the dog die in a movie. I don't understand that shit. Again, like I said, maybe it's a little different in something like an Old Yeller or in other films where, you know, it's they're actually making you feel for the kid or in the situation that they have to put their own dog down. It's a character moment. You can empathize with it. In this, these are dogs that are trying to kill you. Yeah, I don't have a lot of sympathy. Why would I feel bad about killing the hunting dog that's trying to rip my throat out? I don't understand that. I never will understand that. It's so many people, oh, but it's a cute little doggy. No, it's not. It's trying to kill you. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm done. Let's move on. Let's also pause this because I don't want sound chugging into the video and I have to go back and redo this. Engage is a nice way of putting it. The dogs are tenacious and deadly and more likely to find you than their human handlers. Once they've found you, it's hard to run, but watching Ellie stab one to death under your control is no picnic either. Why? Why is killing the dog more traumatic than killing a human? I guess I'm not done with this. Why? Oh! Why is this pissing me off so much? If you think it'll... And again, I understand. I have my own things that I harp on and focus on way too much. That's just how I am. I understand that, and I understand that's how some people are. I just don't get this area of focus. I don't know. I lost where I was. If you think it'll be any different for the human characters, think again. Okay, at least you mentioned that. It's not any different. I must have finished off thousands of faceless NPCs in my time, but these are the first that have ever made me feel actual guilt about it. No. The NPCs don't just keep silently marching on when you shoot someone. They react to the deaths, crying out names, or just strangled cries of anguish. They may be NPCs, but they're not just nameless, faceless masses. Quote, we want to raise the stakes for Ellie, so every time you experience these setups, yeah, you have to engage with what would have been a typical NPC, but now you've shot him and his friends keep screaming his name, and you have to carry the impact of your voice with you as you escape that setup, end quote. Again, I mentioned this before. I really like this idea. It's a neat way of just kind of immersion, of immersing the player into the game. At the same time, again, I don't feel sympathy towards my enemies in these games. I'm somebody who plays as almost like a complete murder hobo. You know, if I get the option to play non-lethal, I'm playing lethal. That's just how I play these games. But yeah, these guys are out there trying to kill me. I'm gonna kill them before that. Maybe it's because I can compartmentalize and what's the term? I can compartmentalize and I can what the fuck is the word? I can justify the action. Maybe that's why. I don't know. It's just that stuff has never bothered me. I think it's actually cool that the enemies will start, crying out their names and everything. I don't find that as, oh, it weighs on me. Nah. I think it's going to be a really cool feature, but while for some other characters in action games, the sudden proficiency for murder feels like emotional whiplash. With Ellie, it is totally understandable. Her backstory means that killing isn't the leap that it might have been for rich girl Lara Croft or charming treasure hunter Nathan Drake. I ask if there's a sense of paternal and maternal feelings towards Ellie, a character that the team created as a child and has seen grow. Yeah, I will give them that it is kind of weird when you think about it, how many people Lara or Nathan killed. I mean, with Lara, at least we got to see her first kill and, see her struggle with it. Granted, for a short time, but still, we got to see it, and I thought it was a good moment. Similar thing with Jason Brody in Far Cry 3. I thought that was really great from the first time that you actually killed somebody, and then how he acts at the very end of the game. That was fantastic. But yeah, it is kind of funny when you think about it, how many people characters like Lara and Nathan actually kill throughout the course of the game. It's actually quite a lot, and you realize, oh my god, they might be crazy. But to me though, it's never felt out of place. It just feels like it's one of those things that you have to accept for a game to work. You if you understand what I'm saying, you have to accept that that's just a video game. It's kind of like it's suspension of disbelief. There we go. I think that there's some level of it that you have to just kind of put out of your mind, just like in certain movies. Well, how exactly did this happen? Well, you kind of have to just not ask that question and accept it for the movie to work. It's kind of like that, and I can do that in some games. In other games, I think, well, that's really weird. I guess it just depends on how good the game is and how seamlessly it kind of just fits in, and it never draws me to that question. And that's something that Uncharted never did. It never drew me to that question of, hey, have you ever noticed that Nate kills a shitload of people in every game? It never does that. But also, maybe it's because I can justify it as these people are also trying to kill Nate. So, again, it's one of those, okay, kill them before they kill you. I'm good. I have it justified in my brain. Quote, I think what we're really trying to do is challenge Ellie to see who she can become when she grows up in such a hostile environment, and part of writing is, very unfortunately, torturing your characters, is putting them in hard situations and testing their values and testing their drive. So while we love Ellie and we're really excited to see her grow up, we're certainly not going to coddle her, end quote. The nuance extends to the enemies as well. The new faction, seen for the first time in the trailer that debuted at Sony State of Play, showcases the WLF, the Western Liberation Front, a sort of xenophobic group of mercenaries who fear outsiders and who appear well organized and relentless. We don't know what bigger part they have to play in the story, but along with the cult we saw in earlier trailers, they're a threat to Ellie and her people. So again, that's my justification for why they die. I keep saying it. That's all I need. To not really feel bad about it. I can understand the trying to empathize with the character, but still, I'm like, boom, okay, it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't hurt my soul. Excuse me. While they need to feel as threatening and as deformed, distorted mutants that stalk. Okay, well, one more time here. While they need to feel as threatening as the deformed, distorted mutants that stalk the game, they're still just people. And that's the key to making them more relatable, but also scarier than the enemies Ellie and Joel faced before. Quote, they have families, they have children, they believe in what they're doing in the same way that Ellie believes in what she's doing. And ultimately, that drive can make them even scarier, right? They're smarter, they're more capable. They're making a choice, whereas the infected are victims of circumstance, end quote. This isn't just in the cutscenes and dialogue, but as always, Naughty Dog has littered the world with mementos of their past, letters and diaries, and snippets that add another layer of storytelling to the horror. Quote, as you saw in the earlier part of the demo, clearing out clickers, clearing out infected is routine. Granted, there are stakes and there's danger to it, but that's a familiar thing. Elaborate Gross. What you find unfamiliar is, excuse me, is people who have different values than you. Is the unknown. It's easy for us to lean into tribalism. They're the enemy. We want to challenge enemy with that. We want to challenge Ellie with that. There we go. But ultimately, it is about humanizing, even if you don't agree with why the WLF do what they do. Even if you don't stand beside them, you still understand their people. Talking to Gross really drove home that when The Last of Us 2 is released in February, it's going to have been worth the wait for everyone who fell in love with the original and a whole new generation of players. And it's prestige, blah, 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 all that general stuff. Clear your calendars for February of 2020. No, again, I all my complaining about the stuff about the dogs and everything, I guess that's more just about the writers and the people who are talking about this and focusing on it. I actually really love what Gross is saying about this game, how they're trying to make it a lot more of I don't want to say more of an emotional tale, because I thought that the first Last of Us was an emotional ride, but I think they're trying to make it more in your face with the horrors of the world, with the horrors that they're going to put Ellie through. I think they're going to be, like I said, more just in your face and make you look at and address what you're doing. Now, how you're going to come out of that, if you're like me, where you can just kind of justify it, or if you're, and who knows, maybe I'll have a different thought when I actually see it and go, holy crap, this is dark. Or if you're more, I don't know, maybe a better person. I say that with quotes. and you actually really are emotionally disturbed. I think this is going to be a really neat story, and I can't wait to see what it's going to be like. We got one more article before the video, and it is specifically about Joel's role in the game. The Last of Us 2 director, quote, Joel plays a major part of this game, article Jordan Gerblick. I'm going with that. This is also of Games Radar. This is gonna be a really short article before we hop into the like inside the demo trailer. But let's take a look at this. Much of what we've seen in The Last of Us 2 puts a spotlight on now grown-up Ellie and her young relationship with Dina. I'm going with Dina. I don't know, because I keep trying to call her Diana, and I know that's not right, but it's what I keep thinking. Casting into question the importance of Joel's role in the story. In fact, we hadn't even seen anything from Joel in The Last of Us 2 until earlier this week when the latest trailer dramatically revealed the grizzled zombie hunter. Now, thanks to an interview with the creative director Neil Druckmann by IGN, who can confirm that Joel's story will remain a main focus point in The Last of Us 2. Thank God, because I was going to wonder, why are you getting the voice talent of Troy Baker to come and reprise Joel if he's barely going to be in this game? I'm just really curious. Is he a fucking ghost? I will keep asking that question. Druckmann suggests the relationship between Elle and Jolie. Elle and Jolie. God damn it. Ellie and Joel at the center of The Last of Us will continue. Sorry about that. I thought that was hysterical. The Last of Us 2 will continue to be a prominent aspect of the sequel story, albeit with a few scars. Quote, the relationship is strained. Some of it is because teenagers will be teenagers, and some of it is because of their history, which is why you haven't seen them together a lot. Druckmann says, so much of The Last of Us is about this duo and their dynamic and how they are together, how they play together. I will say Joel plays a major part of this game, end quote. And again, I'm really glad that they're not just having Joel died off screen. Because what made the story of the first game so cool was almost the path that Joel and Ellie took, how it was kind of a stereotypical kind of like evolution of these characters, but I love how they went from kind of, I don't want to say hating each other, they went from, I guess hating each other in the very beginning, all the way up to, okay, well now she's just a burden that Joel has to carry on to not make Tess's sacrifice, completely pointless, which then leads to Ellie trying to break past Joel's kind of tough exterior, more humanizing Joel, making him less calculative, less angry at the world, to a point where they almost become like a surrogate, like father-daughter relationship for the both of them. I think that was what was so cool about Joel and Ellie's relationship in the first game. So I think it would be a massive kick in the nuts if Joel died off camera. I'm really glad that we get to still see him in this game, and he plays a real role in this. Whether I keep asking if he's a ghost or not, just because I'm curious. Is he just like a manifestation of Joel and Ellie's mind that she lost him but can't let go? I'm super curious about that, and I'm sure it's going to be played up for a while in the game until it's the big reveal. But I really like. I'm really glad that he's at least going to play a role in this game. He's not just going to be he died. Nah. Druckmann goes on to stress the importance of Ellie's blossoming relationship with Dinah, and particularly its complexity. The recent release date trailer has many worried about the fate of Dinah in The Last of Us 2 and speculating that her death could be the catalyst that sets up Ellie's trajectory. The footage shows Dinah on the wrong side of an encounter with a clicker, and afterward Ellie watches in horror as an unseen person is presumably shot dead. Okay, apparently that's the end of the article. That's a really weird spot to end that article. Either way, as much as with Dinah, I don't know. Everyone's so interested in her. I generally just don't care. Because again, to me, The Last of Us is a story about Joel and Ellie, not Joel, Ellie, and Dinah, and Dina, whatever the fuck her name is. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those. Yeah, I'm interested in this character, how she's going to play into things. I have a feeling she's going to be important in that she's going to be the reason that the person who Ellie's trying to avenge But who knows? Maybe Joel's the one who shot, and that Joel's now a ghost and following her around and whatever. I don't fucking know. We'll see once the game actually comes out. But yeah, I'm glad that we get some confirmation that Joel's gonna still remain integral to the game and not just sent out to pasture. So all right, guys. As I promised, we got one last thing to look at, and it's going to be about a 10-minute video. So buckle up.
It's been about a year and a half since we showed anything from The Last of Us Part 2. In that time, we've really been kind of like heads down, quiet, because we want to make sure we have the proper time
weird
to do this game justice.
Anyone think that Neil Druckmann kind of looks like Joseph Seed from Far Cry 5?
Our most ambitious in scope game that we've ever made.
We really wanted to wait until we had something awesome and new and exciting to talk about because we've been so mysterious.
Outbreak Day has always been a way for us to communicate with the fans about The Last of Us. It was like the day the outbreak happened in the fictional world of The Last of Us. And once we had this opportunity to line everything up for Outbreak Day, or in this case, kind of an Outbreak Week, we decided to put out a story trailer with the date of when the game's coming out, and then show the press actual gameplay, let them get hands-on with the game.
But not the fucking public. Just saying.
We're always trying to strike a balance of getting people excited for this game, show them a bit more of a glimpse of the themes this game is about, the cycle of violence, this idea of how far would you go to exact revenge, to...
So I don't want to cut you off there, Neil. But looking at that gameplay, again, just watching Ellie move around from all the little bits and clips that I've seen, really, we do get to see Ellie move around a lot, and I think it is very reminiscent of the gameplay that we saw in the first Last of Us game. So I think we're going to see that similar soft cover system, that same kind of snap to cover sort of thing. You know, use the environment to your advantage during stealth. I know that's kind of an obvious thing just from seeing that, but again, just wanted to point that out.
Bring justice to the people you love. And then we also show that Joel is back, and you get to see him for the first time.
What the hell are you doing here?
You think I'd let you do this on your own?
So we're coming into that first demo in wintertime where snow covers much of the ground, much of the buildings, all the surrounding areas. We see what's life like 25 years after a pandemic has wiped out most of mankind. We pick up Ellie, who was 14 in the first game, is now 19. She's living in the city, Jackson.
Which is where Ellie and Joel have been living for the past 4 years in this sweet settlement. What we come upon is their regular day-to-day life. We're coming in on Ellie and Dina, her best friend.
Dina,
patrolling
okay.
the outskirts of Jackson, looking for infected to clear out to keep the area safe.
Ellie and Dina at this point have been friends for several years, but there's been underlying romance between these two characters. From the demo we put at E3, where you saw this festival and this dance, and these two characters kissed for the first time, this demo takes place the day after.
And then over the course of the level, they encounter some truly dangerous things.
We wanted just across the board to make the enemies more threatening, to raise the tension that we started establishing with the first game. So that means the infected, even the lowest class, the runners, are more dangerous.
Something that was really important to us was empowering all of our characters, right, and making them all equal. Ellie, as we saw in the first game, is incredibly capable, but this is a world where you need to be capable to survive, and we wanted to empower everybody.
And the way that reflects in
just from those gameplay glimpses, I'm really glad they're not changing a lot of the UI and the way that, like, the targeting reticle. It's still that kind of that shaky circle. It's still picking up a bottle and quick throwing it like that. I'm glad they're not changing that, because I thought as far as like the targeting reticle and everything and the combat worked in the first Last of Us game was perfect. I thought it fit the game so well. It fucking worked. And I'm really glad they're really trying to keep to that style. But I really loved watching Ellie like fight that runner off. Sorry, just because again, it's how cinematic that looked. I mean, it looked gorgeous watching her, kick and use her hands to try and get away from that thing. It's not just with a lot of games. It just seems it's very like you're looking at it from the head of a pin. You're actually looking at this go down from just like from almost about a foot away. So you actually get to see her, truly struggle against this against that zombie. It's a really cool looking, like 5 seconds.
Combat is, Dina is way more effective.
So when we have Dina going out, while she may seem the less hardened character, she knows how to use a gun, she knows how to stealth, she knows how to kill a clicker as well as Ellie.
Holy
When
crap.
we were looking to expand
that's
The Last
tense.
of Us 1 to The Last of Us 2, one of the things that jumped out as being an avenue that was really worth exploring was traversal. Ellie is so much more agile, kind of more athletic, that it seemed like we should really pursue this whole avenue of gameplay. Introducing like a real jump, like a real arcing jump, has allowed us to make for much more interesting puzzles, more interesting vertical environments, and can frequently integrate well into combat setups as well.
She's able to move
A lot more
quickly
like Nate.
in a lot of different ways. She can dodge attacks. She can squeeze through, we call them squeeze throughs. Oh, looks like I could fit through that. Oh, I can fit through that. That's cool.
And that has been such a great integration into the combat loop of like you're fleeing an enemy or you're trying to get a flank, you're in stealth, and you just kind of like scooch into a room or behind an object. In The Last of Us, you kind of rely on your weaponry. Like they're frequently the difference between life and death. They're with you for the entire game. A lot of the gameplay choices that you make are based on how you use them, how you evolve them over time through your upgrades. We really
I loved
wanted
watching
to
her unchamber that
get
round.
them up close to interact
Small
with them
detail, love it.
physically. And so the workbench seemed like the ideal place to do that.
I think over the course of the level, just talking about the tech for a second of just us knowing
Again, sorry I keep pausing this and make my little comments here, but again, the small details, watching her unchamber the round, watching her mess with the mag, and actually see her physically messing with the weapons, unlike in the first game where it was just, you saw Joel kind of move from behind him. Like with this, you're actually seeing Ellie like fiddle with the guns and everything. Again, it's small details like that. It's like the enemies calling each other by their name that I was talking about earlier in the video. I love small details like that. It's just, again, it just gives me that level of immersion that I absolutely love.
the environment. We've got, all the deforming snow stuff you'd expect, brushing by on horseback, a branch in the snow falling and collecting on the horse, like all these things you would expect in a realistic grounded world. We have this weather, the storm kind of kicks up over the course of the level. It goes from more of a clear day into a blizzard. It's all just to build this tension of, the mess that they got themselves into. Can they make it safely out?
Dina, where are you?
Eventually, they end up in this old abandoned library, and it's in this moment where Dina really pokes and wants to get the ball rolling on this flirtation, wants to bring down Ellie's walls.
And they kind of reveal to each other how much they like each other.
You're infuriating. Have you met you?
And then we have a second demo that the press played that's like much later in this story where Ellie started going down this road of revenge. She finds herself in Seattle, pitted against this group that controls the city.
Called the WLF. They're kind of a little bit like a militia that has taken over the town, and they have a very zero tolerance policy on people who are not from Seattle, kind of intruding on their space.
And she hears over the radio that a male trespasser has been spotted, and she knows that the WLF are closing in on him. And so we find her negotiating this abandoned hillside suburb.
And she's running into this new enemy type of guard dogs that the WLF are using. Dogs have a new sense of perception to bring to the table, which kind of puts this really interesting wrinkle on stealth gameplay, where so far you've been dealing with sight and sound, trying to stay out of sight, trying to move slowly to be quiet. But now with enemy dogs, you have to worry about them picking up your scent trail.
If you go into listen mode, you can see, we have a visualization of that scent, so you can see like
Oh, that's cool.
sniffing you and where it's going. You can throw bottles to distract the dog off of your scent, and it just adds this extra tension.
That's cool.
The second part of the demo, even though you're fighting mostly human enemies, we're introducing one of our new infected classes, the Shambler.
And the Shambler is kind of a lumbering, tankier enemy that can take a lot of punishment. They'll kind of chase you down and try to get towards you and then burst and leave behind one of these lingering, corrosive clouds.
In the demo, we have this mini boss fight, and that class happens to be a stalker. It's a class between runners and clickers. It's a class that can hide and run away, and we wanted to do a lot more with them in this game. And because we have this evade mechanic, you can kind of go toe-to-toe with someone, and we can have these boss fights that we weren't able to have before. So you guys can go back and forth and exchange combos and evade each other and slam each other onto like desks, and we can now render all these physics objects, and it's all done in service of just grounding you more in this world, making you more immersed in this fight and feel like Ellie's barely surviving by the edge of her abilities.
So for The Last of Us 2, we've kind of almost completely overhauled the player upgrade system. For the first time in the game, you're able to learn entirely new crafting recipes just via the upgrade system. These are abilities that make your character feel really different. You are really able to pursue the playstyle of your choice and kind of make the Ellie that you're playing your individual Ellie.
We designed the whole experience to be something where it's a balanced stealth experience where you have a lot of tools to escape, you have a lot of tools to evade, you can entirely stealth past everyone.
Got something. We'll look into it.
And then the other big thing we did to immerse the player is make the human enemies much more threatening. They communicate a lot more between each other. Their AI is much more sophisticated. We rewrote most of the systems for this game. So much of this game is a conversation about the cycle of violence and how do we make violence feel impactful to the player.
You can't stop this.
Enemies have names. So when you're going around and you shoot someone, you might hear someone yell their buddy's name and they're now upset and agitated, and that changes their behavior.
What is it? Someone took him out!
We got something.
To make a fully realized world, to really honor the impact of this violence, you have to honor every person in it. Nobody's a hero here.
The demo is 2 to 3 hours of the game. You're seeing 2 different seasons, 2 different times of the year. It feels like a lot, and it's a tiny fraction of this entire game. And as we get closer to release, we're going to show more and more of the game.
I like the
But
new
we're gonna
bow
be very
targeting.
Mindful and conscious to not spoil like big things about this game, and I'm just super stoked for people to finally see the whole thing once it's out on February 21st, 2020.
Yeah, I really like the new bow targeting. I really like watching Ellie run around the environment. It just the way she flows from one move to the other. I mean, I talked about this at 2018 Z3 when we first saw that vertical slice of the game. Excuse me, just looked fucking awesome. And again, I think we're getting the same thing here. I love listening to Neil Druckmann talk about his games because I really do think he absolutely loves his craft, and he's very good at what he's doing with this game. And again, it's just, I'm blown away with everything that we're seeing here, and I feel like I might have gotten an answer to a question of mine that Joel, I think, is a living person in this game, at least for a part of it, because they're talking about a male survivor that the WLF found. I'm guessing that's Joel, and I'm guessing so he's actually corporeal. He's not a ghost. But either way, I really do enjoy everything that we've seen here. Again, I wish we could have seen the press demo, but whatever. The game looks dope. Best way I can put it. From everything I've heard, the game looks gorgeous just on PlayStation 4 itself, that they're targeting the base PS4, not the PS4 Pro. So it's going to look good even on your base PlayStation. Granted, I'm probably going to have a Pro by the time that comes out because I'm going to get that because I want to get that limited edition Death Stranding PS4 because that thing looks so fucking cool. But it's going to look good on PS4. It's coming on 2 fucking discs. It's coming on 2 Blu-ray PS4 discs. That is something that's just kind of blown me away. Is that's how massive this thing is going to be, and it's only single player because apparently multiplayer is going to come back in some way, shape, or form, but as its own experience. They're going to bring in that factions mode that apparently grabbed a lot of people and do it in its own way. So yeah, I'm very excited for this game. I think I was, excuse me. I was reading. I think it was a Greg Miller tweet on. He's saying that he kind of feels bad for all the other games in 2020 that they have to go up against The Last of Us for Game of the Year, and he'd like to see any other game try and overthrow it. And I think that's a fair point. That's kind of like the year that The Witcher came out. It's like watching any game, they're all fighting for second. Yeah, I think if there's any game that's going to be able to unthrone this for Game of the Year, it's going to be CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk 2077. These are two totally different kinds of games, two totally different styles, but both developers have one game of the year. Both of these developers are extremely good at their craft, and we get two games, and we get games from both of these developers within the span of about 4 months. We get The Last of Us 2 in February, and then I think in May, I think that's the release date for the Cyberpunk 2077. That's how close together these two fucking games are. I'm so fucking pumped. I can't wait. I'm super excited. I love what we saw here, what we read here. The game looks awesome. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I'm just going to sit here and go, isn't that fucking awesome for the rest of the time if I keep talking. So thanks for watching, everybody. As always, Facebook, Twitter, the website, minds.com. Links that stuff is down in the description below. Like, comment, you're not already. Please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more next time. But until then, my name's AJ Gels, the Seventh Eye Gaming Channel. I'm out.